Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we are watching TV shows week to week, usually with other recommendations, movies sometimes as well, but usually watching a TV series week to week, and usually with a co host, as usual, for these episodes covering the Apple TV series Smoke. I'm joined by Darren.
How are you there, Victor?
Pretty good, pretty good. Can't complain. And this, I think, maybe first impressions of the episode, I thought this was quite an impressive episode with one scene that will be probably an Emmy nominated scene this upcoming year.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was a good episode, but yeah, I'm interested to hear what you think and which scene you're talking about.
The interrogation scene in the
Okay,
prison.
yeah, fantastic. Great close-ups in that. My
yes,
God.
absolutely. What a different side of Freddy we're seeing, right?
He's turned into some kind of like religious figure almost in this episode.
Yeah, I mean, but I think they humanize him a lot here as well. I think it's an interesting. I just rewatched that scene and the final scene, and there is assume humanity they give to him, even though they make him into like a Hannibal Lecter like monster in the center of the episode as well. Okay, so I'm gonna save the calendar, the preview August preview for the end if we have time, and we'll just dig into it. Before we get to all that, just some things we're just following up on some news we've had here on the podcast before. I noticed on your letterbox that you finished Untamed. A couple questions for you because I saw you gave it 2.5 stars. I think I liked it better than you did for sure. I liked it better than you did, although I only gave it 3 stars. It's imperfect, but I thought it was interesting. But the main reason I bring it up is this has become a huge hit on Netflix, and usually it takes a month or two for them to crunch the numbers and renew a season. For example, Department Q, still not renewed, probably will not be renewed, my gut instinct. However, this one, very quickly, within a week and a half, they announced a season 2. So regardless whether you liked, or you could give me your opinion of this, the remainder of the season as you watched it, but do you think the show has good bones for another season?
I think so, because I think just the setting is very unique, and you could go anywhere with it, even though they dug quite deep into different crimes that would go on in this park. But the characters are cool, and Eric Bana just holds it all together. So yeah, absolutely, I'd watch more of him.
One of the things I like about noirs, even the old school noirs, is this kind of when you're trying to protect the femme fatale or unravel a murder, and along the way you find out that your best friend was actually betraying you the whole time, and it's like a tangential discovery, something that's accidentally discovered as part of the investigation. I'm actually a big fan of that in general. So for me, I like the fact that it was almost like he's trying to pursue the case. He solves inadvertently a different case, and it's still not the solution, and he goes in a different direction. And as I mentioned when we first brought up the show, I really like the fact that he's also hiding something to protect somebody else, which is, in a way, he's obstructing his own investigation because he wants to protect this other character, which I thought was a very interesting dynamic. I did suspect, unfortunately, without spoiling anything, that the final reveal was somehow going to be the person, not that I understood the full scope of the crime, but I'm just like, well, that person being cast in this role, I think I know who is going to be the final reveal. And indeed it was. So,
yeah, I had the exact same thought. The only reason I gave it 2.5 stars, I think I gave it, I just kind of tailed off. Like I enjoyed watching every episode. I was very interested each episode, but it got very convoluted in the last couple, and I couldn't actually follow what was going on and which twist was here and why he's following this person. So in that respect, I kind of fell out of it a little bit, even though it was great to watch and enjoyable to watch. I couldn't follow it. The twists and turns.
that last episode, I do agree, even though I found it satisfying to almost have multiple peaks, like dramatic peaks over the course of this very short season. But the finale, remember that clue that was a very obvious clue from like episode 2? Let me follow up on that, and then going in a completely different direction with the investigation, which of course turns out to be the actual solution to the crime. But it was, it is kind of comes out of nowhere. Although it was there in plain sight, yes, but it was also kind of like, when that clue gets dropped that this is going to be important, and then they just forget about it for 4 episodes, so they come back to it at the very end. So just a weird structure, but I did like him in the role, and I did like. I do think this could be another successful season of this. It could be. It could become a success here for something that comes back every year for Netflix, which of course all these streamers are looking for these returning shows. And always fun to see Eric Bana, who I always like. Maybe this will be a Eric Banaissance for him, like a renaissance to his career as well.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Good on him.
Okay, another thing, the ratings have started coming in for The Bear, and not that surprisingly, I was curious to know if you finished this season, the most recent season. Viewership was down about 24%. Still a huge success for, given the successes or lack of successes for Hulu in general. Still one of the biggest shows out there, but obviously a big drop off. And I think it's a combination of maybe the interest in this particular season, which was a much more muted, I think intentionally season, but also people were kind of disappointed with last season as well. So what was your general impression of the season if you did finish it?
I have not started the new season yet, but we did finish the last season.
What'd you think of last season then?
Yeah, up and down. The good episodes were really good, and then some episodes I just wasn't interested in at all, like the birthing episode, which my wife really liked. I was like, no, I don't like these ultra close-ups of Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't like her character in general in this show. But I thought it wrapped up quite well at the end of season 3. So I'm going to continue on when we finally get the chance with the next season. Yeah.
Huge redemption arc, I have to tell you, with Jamie Lee Curtis, who I found as a very irritating character. She is fantastic in the 4th season. So a redemption arc for her, if nothing else. By the way, very funny that you said that. I thought that the mother-daughter episode thematically was great, but for me as an episode did not work. Only a few scenes in it actually worked for me, but very much like your wife, Sona, and my wife both love that episode. And I'm like, well, maybe this is a guy thing, girl thing, because didn't quite work for me. But but there were definitely very high points in that season as well.
Yeah, and I did like how it wrapped up with that other lady's restaurant, and this is the restaurant that brought everyone together, and that hit this level of excellence that they've all gone on to do. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. Season 4, I think in general, audiences also agree it's better than season 3. I agree with it. Also in a very different register, very much intentionally. And I was a big fan of season 4. And of course, now we've heard that it's coming back for season 5, even though they said this was the last season. It is not. So it'll continue, of course. But a very good season, the most recent one.
Wow, and that guy is going on to do. He's playing Bruce Springsteen, and he's hitting that Iron Claw film was fantastic. So he's just going from strength to strength and balancing his TV work with premiere movies as well.
So there's a open question still as to whether he'll come back or if he'll come back in a lesser role because of how busy he is. But this cast is busy in general. So it remains to be seen. But it's very curious if you watch season 4, and maybe have a discussion without spoiling anything. They are planting some seeds, I think, in different directions the show can go in. And I wouldn't even be surprised if maybe this is the end of The Bear, as in officially there'll be other shows with these characters in it, but maybe not called The Bear. And I think that really has to do with whether he comes back or not for the next season.
Yeah, wow, epic. Okay, interesting.
The slaporama that's going on now. I have to mention this because it's one of those weird things. And by the way, everybody out there, this is a little impetus for all of you guys. If you have tried to mention to somebody or who's watching a show that you happen to be watching, be like, you really should listen to this podcast, and they still haven't listened to us, just keep pushing them because sometimes you need like a 10th, 15th, 20th prodding before you finally take the plunge and watch a movie or do anything like that. And the slap is one of those things, which as I only knew the slap as this meme that went around a decade ago or something when the American show was on, like on late night shows, they were making jokes about the slap or, spoofing the trailer with the kid getting slapped. And that was my impression of the show. And then what ended up happening was I've heard it in other contexts, but never circled back around to it until you brought it up. And then I was like, oh, let me watch this because I thought it was going to be silly. And in my
Right.
research of watching the Australian show, which is available, everybody, on the Roku channel, the NBC show, the big American show with Uma Thurman and these all-star cast, I couldn't find it anywhere. But the Australian show is available on Roku in the United States, and I assume everywhere else for free with ads. But anyway, so I'm like, let me check it out, see if it is just funny or silly or whatever. But in my research of watching it, I found out the show was like, the novel was very well regarded. And I loved the show. I finished it, and it's the type of show that I really like. I like when you have this type of fragmented story where you see the same events or the same story from different characters' point of views. It's my favorite type of literature, actually. I love the show, and I probably would love the book as well. Just the discovery that I had where it would be something that I wouldn't be interested in normally. But simultaneously, the reason it's become such a thing in my house, my wife has been trying to read more. So now she's reading the book based on the inspiration of your wife. And now Sona's reading the book. So everyone's going to end up reading this 17-year-old book because of you, Darren. This is what you've done.
Look, my wife's quite chuffed.
Because of your wife, actually. That's actually the real story.
She was reading this book. She's like, this book has such long chapters and they're just so brilliant. They're fantastic. I'm like, The Slap. I remember that as a TV show about 15 years ago. I've never watched it. So we started to watch it. We're still only about 2/3 of the way through it. But the way that it's structured is really interesting, whereas the main event is in the first episode, and then each episode focuses on a particular character that was at that barbecue where this child got slapped, and it progresses the story forward a little bit each time. And we just finished Rosie's episode, who is the mother of the character who got slapped, and I didn't have much feeling for her. So I thought she was a little bit unsympathetic, but after watching her episode, she's just a tragic character. And
it's so good.
I feel very sorry for her.
Yes, exactly. And you haven't seen the father yet. Have you seen the father's character?
I have not. No, not yet.
That's another episode that I think it's the character I like the most. Seeing this older man dealing with the realities of his older life and his expectations as an immigrant. I was like, wow, this really knocked me out. Like totally knocked me out.
Yeah, so we're savoring it. We're trying not to double up episodes. We're watching it like every night or every other night, just so we can keep the slapathon going.
Right.
Because once it's over, I don't think we're going to delve into the American series. Maybe, but I haven't heard great things about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it's a lesser version of the Australian season. So I might watch it. I mean, I first of all can't find it in streaming, but if it does pop up by chance, I probably would watch it because another thing I'm very interested in all the time is adaptation. Like one of the first conversations I think we had here on the podcast was talking about Speak No Evil. And I'm always fascinated when you take material and someone else adapts it, and sometimes very badly, but sometimes very interestingly as well. Maybe it's something to explore, at least the sample, some of my favorite episodes and see how they compare and contrast. So maybe. But that's a big question mark. But what I would say is that the Australian series was excellent. I thought the worst episode was the last episode, maybe because I just don't relate it to the character as much. But almost every episode I was knocked out. And once again, it's what I like about those shows is when you see a character, you kind of judge them. There are people that you probably know. They're a certain type that might be in your friend group or in your neighborhood. And then all of a sudden seeing the world from their perspective. And you may not like them at the end of that episode, but you empathize with them. And it's quite an interesting thing that only a TV show or a movie can do.
That's a really good point. Yeah, you see life how they see it, and you can understand how they behave the way they behave, even if you may not behave that way if you were in their shoes. But yeah, very interesting, eye-opening. And
now I might cut this out, but I'll tell it to you anyway. Now I have a recommendation for your wife that she might be interested in. So as part of all this like reading and me enjoying that series so much, then I was talking to my wife about getting into the habit of reading more. And she says sometimes it takes her a very long time to read a book. So I told her what I like to do is read short stories. And because then you can kind of knock them out. And I kind of liked this book, The Slap, for that reason, that it's bunched like a compilation of short stories. One way to read the book that way. So anyway, I was looking for I should take my own advice and start reading a book. And I was looking for short stories. So I'm like, well, there's a short story award that's given every single year for collections of short stories. Let me start there. So last year's short story winner was by an Australian writer called Fiona McFarlane.
Okay.
She has written a collection of short stories. The book is called Highway 13. I'd recommend this if your wife was looking for something to read. These short stories are so compelling, especially the third story in this collection. The short story are all interconnected by a serial killer, but it's not a serial killer. There's no grisly murders or anything in there. What it is a serial killer in Australia that was killing backpackers. And he had like a regular middle-class life, but he was secretly doing this terrible thing. But it's not about him, and it's not about the crimes themselves. It's about the repercussions that sometimes decades later still impact. For example, the first story is a bunch of people are having a party. They work in this town. Everybody jokes that it's still called like Murderville. And then one of the guys who works there and the girl who's there who kind of has a crush on him, they end up driving past one of the murder sites and they decide to go walking into the woods, which no one ever does in that area. So it's basically how this different people, some people live in America now, it's a generation later. It's like one of the victims' brothers and how he's so paranoid about this young girl on Halloween, and that what if the same thing had happened to his sister happens to that girl. So it's how this crime has these repercussions multi-generationally across continents even, and it's so fascinating and it's so well written. Each one of the stories are just about one particular person and their particular very tangential relationship to the original murders and how it still impacts their lives now. And it's really fantastic. Like I said, that Halloween story is so compelling. I want to be clear about this if I keep this in the episode. The negative reviews I've read about it, everybody's like, it's not scary at all. It's like, this is not a horror novel. This is not a thriller. This is a very humane look at how a crime can have these very long tendrils of consequences. And it's really good. I'm about halfway
that's a great
through.
Recommendation.
If your wife likes to read those type of stories, like she was saying, like, oh, these chapters are so long, but they're so well written and they're so complex and the characters are so complex. Each one of these chapters is like their own little world. It's so well done. I'm really impressed by it.
Okay, that's cool. Yep, I'll buy that for her and I'll see if she gets stuck into it.
And if she doesn't, I mean, you may be curious about it too, because I know you're a horror fan, but if she's turned off because she thinks it's horror, as I'm almost 2/3 of the way through the book, and there's been no violence at all in the books at all, or any even descriptions of violence in the book up until this point. So
yeah,
and I believe it's not going to be that type of story either going forward. So
unfortunately, these backpacker murders possible are out there all the time.
Australia seems to have a reputation for this, apparently. Yeah.
We just had a German backpacker go missing recently here, and luckily she was found a couple of weeks later by herself, bogged, and she was out walking by herself. She just got found in time, but everyone was thinking the worst, that someone had taken her.
Well, we just had a couple of people on on Appalachian Trail or something. I forget which park it was in. It might not have been officially the Appalachian Trail, but disappeared, and we just found out that they had been murdered and their bodies were found. So. It happens here too.
Yeah.
Oof. Okay. Let's finally get into this episode. Smoke. So this episode's called Whitewashed Tombs, and we'll explain exactly where that comes from. It comes from that really incredible scene in the middle of the episode. But let's start with the definition. We have ignominy. I always say ignominy, which is wrong. It's ignominy, which is basically the opposite of noble. So disgraceful, dishonored, public contempt. And we know that this is Dave in this episode coming from the highest high to the lowest low by the end of the episode. Mm-hmm. A couple of really interesting moments here in the episode. The very first one, we have Stephen talking to Michelle Calderone. I forgot to mention this in last week's recap, but it ends with her confronting her brother. Her brother's so excited. Mommy's coming home. He is completely tone deaf that she does not want to hear this. And she's staying with me. Isn't that great? Steven is talking to Michelle, and she's laying this all out. And this is kind of ham-fisted, this dialogue, which once again might be this whole meta, but I'm not going to talk about the whole meta aspect of this story anymore. It is interesting that he is speaking to her about what she's going through and how people write their own stories. And I even wrote down some of the dialogue. He says, bad people create stories to deny the fact that they are bad people. But then someone or something or someone becomes irrefutable proof that they are pieces of shit. That's what he says. And then he has this whole metaphor about you hold up the mirror. This is when it gets really clunky. You hold up the mirror, but then you put a sheet on the mirror because you don't want to see yourself, whatever. But you do think about Dave seeing himself in the mirror last week. And the most importantly is this whole idea that this kind of ties all of these characters together in this show about how they're all telling stories where they're the good guys. But, Dave, of course, has taken it way too far. Still, it's a kind of something that ties all these characters together. You want to believe those stories. Oh, and of course, the most important part about this is as he's talking to her about this situation, he is standing in his empty house because his family's moved out. He's in the doorway with the Devin written on the door, his son, I presume, who's not living there anymore, because of course he cheated on his wife and they've all moved out. So here's another person who's writing some kind of narrative about how he's the good guy, but really not so great.
I agree with you that it was a little bit clunky, but it felt like they were really going for what the theme of the show is. But yeah, I did the way that his child's name was written on the door, and he's just kind of walking around with a beer or with a drink and talking to his ex-girlfriend or girlfriend or woman that actually caused his marriage breakup or helped move it along. I mean, and it was quite sad, wasn't it?
I like how at the end of the conversation, it's like, hey, can I come by and maybe, we can comfort each other? And she's like, no, you're perfect right over there. Not and he tries to put a little salt in the wound going like, you may not want to believe this, Michelle, but I'm actually your best friend. And she laughs and goes, trust me, I know. She's like, I'm fully aware that no one else likes me. By the way, Journey Smollett was doing an interview in a magazine headline that I read, and apparently she put on 20 pounds of muscle for this role. 20 pounds.
Jesus. Yeah, well, she looks incredible.
She does. She looks very fit. The next morning, she meets with her sister-in-law, and they continue this conversation. And this is, I thought, another really interesting conversation between the two of them. First of all, I like the whole thing where she says, oh, are you saying you're better than me? You're drinking coffee without sugar. You got like egg white omelet or whatever. And she's like, here, try some bacon. Put a little sugar in that coffee. And she's like, yeah, it is better. She does. The conversation gets more serious when she starts saying, this woman is coming into your house and she's going to corrupt your daughter potentially. And she gets offended by this, which I would too, being like, okay, hold on a second. I'm her mother. So how much damage is this woman going to do? And so, step off a little bit and, you need to work out your things. That's not necessarily my things. But she did plant a seed here because she goes back to her husband and has another conversation with him too.
Absolutely. I mean, the mother tried to kill Journey Smollett as a child. So, exactly. I mean, if there's another child in the house and she's coming out of jail for when she's been there for 20 years, she may have unresolved issues with children.
And speaking of being, writing an old narrative that you're living in, the brother is all like, oh, mommy's coming home. And then she, after this conversation, goes and talks to him and says, would you leave your daughter alone with this woman? And he's like, no. And she's like, then why is she living with us? Very good questions. Very good questions.
Crazy. Well, it's going to be interesting to see if she comes in hot as a character.
Yeah, we only have 2 episodes left. I do definitely want to get to know the mother. And I still want to understand what happened that night. We saw a little bit more of it today where she's like, it's not working. And we don't know what's happening. She's having some kind of mental breakdown. But there is still like the earlier we had seen blood spatter. Did she try to kill herself? And maybe she didn't die. We still don't know. I think there's still a lot of unknown about what happened that night.
There is. I always assume there was someone else there, but maybe you bring up a good point.
I thought the same thing. Did someone else commit suicide in that room? Or I'm not sure what happened. But but someone got shot at some point. So I guess we'll know more details before the end of the show. Meanwhile, Dave is a star. He's juggling on TV.
Good morning, Orrington.
Yes, Good Morning Orrington is so ridiculous, this whole thing. And all the license plates with Orrington on them. It's just, all this is just whatever, what's going on there. Once again, I'm not even going to bring it up anymore. I'm tired of to bring it up. Oh, and of course, this cartoonish editor character, she's like furious that this young, worker, reader, I guess, who apparently just is like her personal assistant, but also reads. I don't know what he does, but he had passed on this novel. And she's like, get him on the phone. We missed the good opportunity. She becomes a very big part of this episode. Ezra, hilarious that he's so angry. He's like, great, we made him into a hero.
Talking about a character coming in hot, I mean, that publisher or whoever she is, she has a huge presence in this episode.
Huge.
And Ezra, they just keep having Ezra around. For some reason, they're giving him an earpiece. They're giving him like jobs in the van.
He's running the interview.
Yeah. He's a no one.
And I mean, like, here's somebody who an episode ago, no one trusted his decision making, and they probably shouldn't. But he was right that this guy is sketchy. So now he's apparently, given the keys to Dad's car. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. But I guess, you know what? He's not in the defense of the logic of the show. He's not the guy in the room pretending to be the agent. You do have, who seems to be very put together, the ATF agent there. She seems to be very well put together. So he's just coaching her, and she's the filter of what's actually happening in that room. So probably the correct choice.
Yeah, but not that she needs coaching at all. I don't think.
She probably is fine.
Yeah, she knows what she's doing.
Of course, during the conversation where Ezra's angry and then they're all blaming each other for letting him become a hero, this is when the editor calls up. We want to get in touch with him. But then they say, hold on a second. We actually want to use you to set a trap for Dave. I like when they're talking to the editor and she's like, no, thank you. If this thing goes wrong, I'm the one they're going to be blaming if you're going to set things up. But of course, money talks, and they're like, hey, you like his story? How about he turns out to be the killer, and he's both of the characters in the investigator and the arsonist in the same book. And that's the real story. Isn't that more interesting? And she's like, okay, give me exclusive rights, and I will endanger my life to get this book published.
Yeah, so this, I think, is trying to tie into the podcast that this is based on. I'm not quite sure. I'm still not all the way there yet, but it's a good way of getting her involved, isn't it?
Yeah, they put a lot on her shoulders, this woman who comes out of nowhere for this particular episode. Meanwhile, Dave is still riding high on this hero trip he's on, and he goes home, even though Ashley does not want him there, and decides to make her some breakfast. And he's just like, hey, honey, how is everything? Couples fight. I figured it was just, water under the bridge. But Ashley does not want him back. And she's like, your things are in the garage. And he tries to grab her arm at one point, and she just flinches. And now it's interesting because I guess we don't know all the details of what is going on behind closed doors with them, but we've never seen him in this presentation of it be physically abusive to her. But this isn't the first time where she flinches when he's around, or that time when he was snapped at her son and she seemed like she's afraid that he's about to lash out. So she knows he's a violent person.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's always there under the surface. And as she says later in this episode, he's a different person when he turns around and she sees his reflection in a mirror.
Mm-hmm. That's a great, that's a great impression. Mirrors again.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Back at the office, he gets back and he says, oh, things are great at home. And he's lying about this. Everybody gives him a hero's welcome. Even Michelle, although she's just pretending to, and says, hey, why don't you? He's like, oh, I just had all these hunches. That's how I caught this guy. And she goes, well, how come you didn't let me in on those hunches you were having? And he doesn't quite have an answer for that. But this is when he gets the phone call saying that Milk Jug, as he calls Freddy, wants to talk to only him. So, of course, he heads over to the prison. And she says, hey, can I come along? So I can learn from the master. Before we get to the big scene, I do have a question. Is this guy actually a good investigator? Because he did crack this case.
He did. I mean, he's been doing it for long enough, right? I mean, he should be decent at his job, I would have thought. Or sometimes you get promoted to a job that you can't actually do and you can't go any further. But I reckon he's, as an arsonist himself, he knows what to look
right.
for.
Well, I mean, that's what Freddy directly calls him out for, right? Regardless, even we'll get into that conversation with Freddy, which is truly amazing. regardless of whether he has some kind of intuition because of his arson, everybody else was like, oh, I guess these arsons aren't, I guess it's a copycat, I guess this isn't related. So in general, he was the one who was pursuing this, but he didn't just have some kind of woo-woo psychic premonition or something. He just followed the clues, right? He said, like, how does this connect potentially to that neighborhood? Oh, that guy was the manager, HR for that company. Well, there's a lot of those restaurants in the inner city. Hey, there's another connection, right? There's one in that neighborhood where all the fires took place. They're using grease fires. Who works works back in the, who's the fry cook there? He put the pieces together, and maybe it wasn't that complicated a mystery to solve, but other people weren't following up on those clues. So I do wonder if this guy would still be on the prowl, basically, if it wasn't for him.
That's true, and he really wanted to do it himself, didn't he? He didn't want to get Michelle's help, even though she came up with the idea of putting those tags in the plastic bags.
That was a clue that he did use for sure. Yeah. And then we get the big scene. So he goes, he meets with Freddy. He walks in there like he just wants to gloat. Hey, Freddy, I got you. Look, I got you dead to rights. And he's making fun of him. How, the only thing I got wrong, I thought you were going to have this big old afro. Little does he know they shaved his head like last week.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a big afro anyway. It's a small afro. But it was, he's like basically mocking him. And then this is an incredible performance, right? He's just like, who put that hole in you? Who made that giant hole? Was it your mother? And he's just digging and digging. And like, Dave is so uncomfortable during this scene. It's really intense.
The close-ups are incredible of Taron Egerton's face and his brow that gets furrowed as Freddy is digging deeper and deeper into him. It was stunning. I'm not quite sure if I believed Freddy's kind of insight that he has, but maybe he just sees a bit of himself in Dave, and he can see that kind of pure emptiness and evil that's there. But yeah, it was very cool.
But he does seem to put a finger on the mother thing, and of course, Calderon perks up when she hears this because an origin story of maybe an arsonist potentially, right? Because he likes fire too. Does he have another arsonist mom in his background? That would be quite a coincidence with Calderon as well.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, because they did almost bond over their troubles with their own mothers.
Yeah, so there's another connection between them. Freddy, I assume, didn't know his mother, and I guess he's had surrogate mothers along the way who may have abandoned him, and that might be part of a trigger. There is a moment there where he's reflective, Freddy is, where he gets kind of sad when Dave questions him, like, why did you burn those homes? And he just says, I don't know. But then he turns it on him and he goes, well, what's your excuse? Because he's making fun of him, saying you were abandoned. You went to 24 homes, 27, I think was the actual number. And, you were abandoned by all those families. He's like, wait, what's your excuse for doing the same thing? And then Dave says, I don't commit arson. I don't kill people. And Freddy laughs in his face. And that's where he has the line. That's the line from the title. You are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but on the inside full of bones of the dead. And this makes Dave puke right in front of Calderon when he walks out the door.
Now, is this a reference to something literary? I didn't Google it, but it seemed like they were referring to something. I'm not sure.
I've never heard whitewashed tombs as a like a quote from something, but it's possible. Maybe there is a literary reference here.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because that's the episode title, isn't it? And just the way that Dave, he comes in as a confident interrogator, he thinks, and he gets torn apart in seconds. It's so funny. He's doing a great job.
Oh, that happens, by the way. That is the pattern of the entire show. He starts off juggling on TV, and by the time he meets with, I should say, and then he heads home high on this. I'm sure everything is forgiven now because everyone thinks I'm a superhero, and his wife says, no, that didn't fix anything just because you were on television. And then he goes and says, hey, I'm the conquering hero. Freddy wants to talk to me, being like, how did you figure me out? You're so smart. And instead he's like, you're like me, aren't you? Dead on the inside, full of bones. Like, what does he describe him as? Like a maggot-filled bird. It's like, that's what you are. With you're the slimy stuff. You're not even the bird. You're the slimy stuff inside the bird. That's your soul. And then that's his, comeuppance there. So then he heads over to the next scene where he goes and meets with the publisher or the editor anyway. And then that gets very ugly by the end of it. And then they have a big party for him at the bar. And this is when he figures out that everybody's onto him. So over and over again, it's the pattern of him coming low after coming in so high each time.
And he's not completely stupid either. Like in the
No.
meeting with the publisher or the book agent, he feels that something is different, and then ultimately he works it out when he sees the investigator and John Leguizamo's character together. But I think he worked it out anyway along the way.
Yeah, he was very suspicious. Even in that meeting, they kind of put a thumb on the scale that he walks in. She immediately drops the knife on the floor, which is like kind of a cliche, but she seems a little nervous. And you just see him like eyeing the situation. Then he starts drinking and he wants to believe the story, right? Everybody thinks I'm so smart. Everybody loves my book. But then he starts to get a little wary when they start asking questions. Like this character, Donald, what's up with Donald? Well, Donald thinks he's smarter than everyone, or Donald, he doesn't say Donald thinks he's smarter than anyone. Donald is smarter than everyone. And I find it very funny, of course, that the character's Donald and he keeps calling him Don, like this abbreviated version of it. And there's the whole Trump thing there, but we're not even going to talk about that whole thing. But he has like the Dave, everyone calls him Dave, right? So it's an abbreviation, another D name. It's kind of on the nose that this Donald is actually Dave. There definitely is no doubt that there's a reference here to Trump about him being like, I'm smarter than anybody. I could do everybody else's job better than they can. And of course, he says the game is rigged. Well, where have we heard that before, right? So Donald knows the game is rigged against people like him. And this is when the editor gets all furious. What do you mean? What's rigged against him? How? And he's like, it's rigged against him because he's a man. She's like, yeah, those men, they have it so hard.
She just couldn't help herself.
She couldn't. She had to really keep her. Yeah, she's just not ready for this type of work. But they do ask him directly, well, why does Donald set these fires? And he says, to punish them, because they rejected him. So this book was rejected, right? So maybe be careful that she doesn't have, a fire set in her house by the end of this series. Deva at one point gets angry, right? He actually like punches the table. He says men have become a bunch of dickless men. They go see their psychiatrists, and it's the woke mob is oppressing them. He doesn't say that, but that's basically what he's implying. This all gets ugly. And of course, Ezra knows that he's turned a corner and even says he's not an idiot. So he knows that he's starting to get suspicious. And he certainly is, even here, very suspicious. Calderon contrives at the gym she goes to, God knows what gym, to, way out of her way to unplug all the exercise machines so that Ashley ends up running right next to her. And Ashley is a librarian. So she is not dumb and she knows that this is all a setup. So, Calderon starts asking her, what kind of crimes do you think we are suspecting him of, if you think we're suspecting of things? And she says he could be capable of anything. And this is where he mentions that other face that he shows when she's not looking, which is pretty terrifying, right? That idea of it.
Yeah, I did like how she was very didn't want to talk to Jurnee Smollett's character at all because of the ruse that she created. Right. But then as soon as the truth kind of gets dug into about Dave, she's very willing to open up and bond with her.
Yeah, she's like, oh, could he go to jail maybe? Let's talk. I was just thinking about this when I rewatched this scene just before our conversation, that this might be the other shoe that's yet to drop, is that she didn't know he has yet another wife. So we know this wife, Ashley, and she mentions, he had some rape fantasies. He wanted to rape me in a burning building and record it on video. So right away, Michelle is like, oh, there's videos of this guy. Ezra's got videos. And indeed he does. She's like, but other than him being away on some of those days you mentioned that I know for a fact that he was gone because he said he was working, he could have been setting those fires, but she has no concrete evidence of any of that. She does also discover that there was more than one wife. He only knew about the one. And then Michelle goes and visits the other wife, Reba. And this is a mistake she makes potentially because Reba does eventually call Dave and warn him that they're onto him. this is interesting, the whole relationship with Reba. I like when she's saying that to Michelle that, he's not such a bad guy. He's kind of a bad boy. He's kind of not the kind of guy you take home to mom. But she looks at Michelle and reads her correctly and says, that's not the kind of guy you're into, is it? Although Reba apparently has ended up with one of those nice guys, but then she's cheating on him with her jerk ex-husband, right?
I did find this a bit curious as to why she's got Dave's back. And
Yeah,
I thought
I
maybe
agree.
she is a bit more involved in
Yeah.
this than we think. Yeah, so I think it's a little bit sus.
It's definitely suspicious, but I mean, we saw her interactions with him. She was pretty angry at him when he was at that police conference and things didn't go the way she expected. And she said, you're so small, you cannot even perform sexually because in your mind right now, all you're thinking about is that girl humiliating you. So she knows how this guy's wired, and she probably knows at some level that he could be a bad guy, but maybe she's thinking, well, not that type of bad guy. But I was just wondering that we have never seen the other wife, the first wife, presumably here. And I'm very curious to know what story does she have? Because maybe she has seen more. Like we see in that video, we saw that Ezra actually was goaded by him to start a fire. And Michelle even asks the wife, has he ever committed arson with you, like, just as a prank, because she saw what he had done with Ezra. And even that, she's just like, no, just a campfire. So he has been guarded to not show his hand too much to the people around him. But I do wonder if we go further back and we find that first wife, if she's got quite a story to tell. Maybe more violence, maybe more arson.
Interesting. Yeah, they wouldn't drop that in the last episode if this character is not going to come into it, right?
Yeah, I assume that might be they'll be like, well, we hit another dead end. We don't have anything that really any kind of evidence. And then the wife turns up, and she's got quite the story to tell. The first wife.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the two wives that we do know are very different. One has his
Yes.
back, one completely does not have his back. And so I wonder what the first wife, what she's going to be about.
That's all something that we could speculate on psychologically as well. That is he picking these women, he's trying to be that person that he's presenting each time, right? Which I guess we all do to some extent, right? We're different versions of ourselves with our friends, with our spouses at work. We're all different versions. So maybe that is, he may just be a sociopath where he's just mirroring the people around him rather than having any kind of, knowledge of himself other than being this arsonist. It might be his defining characteristic.
Why is his second wife? She seemed to be very willing to have affairs with him at these fire conferences, and he's obviously been able to get it up with her, as she said that he could always do that. Maybe because he was setting fires around these conferences, so he was always a bit horny. But and this last time he couldn't, and she was completely off him, but she still has his back. So yeah, very interesting to see what happens with this first one.
Yeah, that all culminates here at this big party they have for him. Again, everything is falling apart. Yes, great scene. I Need a Hero playing on the soundtrack.
So good. Taron Egerton could not resist joining in to sing with this guy who he hates.
Yeah, Stephen, the captain who had this affair with Calderon, which of course he probably wants to get with Calderon, and there's some jealousy there. But also, ironically, Stephen lets him push his buttons, because of the book and everything. So he may still not believe he actually accused Calderon earlier that she had slept with him. So maybe there's all that jealousy. And of course, Dave gets him where he says, oh, a whole father-daughter thing going on, like kind of pointing out the age difference. And he sucker punches him. But he gets him a drink at his own party, no less.
So good. I love that scene.
Meanwhile, Kinnear does not have his back, so he starts getting bad vibes. He knows that things are falling apart when he doesn't even have him on his side. And there's another really good scene, the two of them together, when he's outside saying, like, I thought we were friends, we were buddies. And, Kinnear has come full circle to believe fully that this guy's been lying to him this whole time. So, of course, he feels guilty about treating him this way. But at the same time, he thinks this guy's a true scumbag, right? So
Yeah, he wears his heart on his sleeve, Greg, in his character, and
Yes,
he
yeah.
just cannot hide it at all. You know exactly what he's thinking.
And all of this is prefaced or pretty early on in the scene. Of course, we see Reba. This is actually very heavy handed again. Some of the stylistics here I thought were very good, but some of this stuff is really kind of corny. And the whole like slow motion at the party, intercutting everybody looking at him. And we don't hear what she says. We just see her mouth moving slowly as
Hmm.
we presume, is telling him that they're all onto him and they're all looking at you right now. And he drives off very angrily, listening to Nine Inch Nails, no less. He's driving so fast though the tracker falls off the car. He heads back to his office, and then there's a picture frame he has of this like a lake house or something that he takes with him. I don't know what that means. Maybe that's where he's headed potentially. And then, of course, like you mentioned already earlier, he even tracks down that the ATF agent who was pretending to be the agent has met with Steven as well. So now, of course, he knows that all his paranoias have come true. Everyone's in on it.
Yeah, I couldn't quite work that out where he met them or where they were coming out of a house. I
Or
kind
who
of
he was following
lost
to
it at
get there.
that.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure how he knew to follow anybody where they were going. Somehow he saw them
And you say
together.
he's got a picture of a house as well. I kind of missed that as well. Saw him looking in the filing cabinet, in Calderon's filing cabinet, but I couldn't quite work out what he'd found.
Can't remember if it was from her desk or off the wall. I don't remember what it is. All I know is that there's a picture of this lake house, and I'm
Okay.
not sure why it mattered. Maybe we'll find out next week. And then we have this kind of beautiful final scene where Freddy kills himself. There's a actually kind of touching that there's one of the last memories he has as he's dying is of having his hair washed. So it's like maybe this
Mm.
one small act of kindness that he had so few. He only saw one movie ever. so uh,
Yeah.
this is a very sad ending to Freddy, who is a complete monster, though. So I guess if he couldn't burn down any more houses, he didn't even want to go on living. He wanted to kill himself last week, actually. So it's not too surprising that he would go this route.
I'm in two minds about this scene. I mean, when you start the episode, it gives you a warning, and all these
Mm-hmm.
streamers now give you a warning when there's potentially impactful scenes like this. So you're always expecting it, and you've always go into the show with an idea of who is going to try to kill themselves.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was Freddy. The music was very like religious iconography. It
Mm-hmm.
reminded me of the way that the light was shining in behind him, and the kind of like ritual that he's doing. I found it very disturbing, actually. Um, the way that he did hang himself up there, I thought it was quite horrible. But the beautiful shots of his eyes
Yeah.
blinking and his memories of his life. And I did remember the one movie that he saw and the one time he went to the amusement park.
Yeah.
I thought that was quite sweet. But yeah, shocking ending. But poor old Freddy, he's gone. But we can see him in Dexter
That's right.
Resurrection as a different character,
That's right.
much more friendly character.
That's actually a prequel to this show. No, I'm just kidding. Any other key takeaways here?
Look, another solid episode. I'm really enjoying the show. I can't wait to watch it every week, which it has surprised me. But yeah, it's so cool, and it's just so cinematic. There's just some scenes where it's just exposition scenes of Calderon meeting with someone, but they're just in an incredible looking background with there's like a weir or a tunnel or something. I remember stands out from this episode. I'm just really enjoying the way that it's presenting stuff to us, but I still want to know exactly what this mystery is or the way that it is presented. We talk about it every week. We want to know more. There was a scene which we were in the publisher's office, and the Rafe Spall character did kind of say that he's writing something, that we're watching something, and I thought they were going to unravel it there and then,
Yeah.
but it's still to come. Two more episodes. All right, I'm not sure if we're going to get a satisfying explanation to it all, but I'm thrilled to see what's going to happen. And I just want to see Dave get his downfall, his ultimate downfall, and Calderon to just nail him.
At this point, we're so late in the game that the whole idea of this being a metafiction, it might be going back to the idea of being too clever for its own good, it might just end up where the show itself is a metafiction, right? That we, there'll be something at the end where they wink at the camera a little bit, being like, but we all know this is all, pretend, not exactly accurate, without having a full reveal of the real Dave or something like that, which I think would be a little unsatisfying if that's the direction it goes in. But obviously at this point, whether it is, maybe it's, I just think it's kind of ham-fisted at what it's trying to do, but maybe it's just trying to say that all of this is narratives. All of this is, it goes to exactly hitting the theme right on the head in this episode, where it's all building mirrors to make ourselves have the best versions of ourselves. But then sometimes we look into those mirrors and we see the truth and it makes us uncomfortable, right? So is this all saying that these are all stories we tell ourselves and all these characters are telling themselves stories? And this itself is just a big story that we tell ourselves to make some reasonable sense out of what's occurred. So maybe it's that type of thing. I would still hope that they would, show us the boundaries, but there's definitely some intentionality in showing us that this is fictional or heightened, to say the least. But I'm not sure if that's all going to pay off yet. But yeah, just as an episode of television, I thought this was pretty compelling. I think they probably would have been better off just playing it straight, to be honest, all the way through. And then, without this weirdness of, for example, this is based on a true story. A lot of the facts in this story are very close to the truth. There's definitely outlandish things here too, but a lot of them are very close to the truth. And we haven't used the character's the person's real name yet. And by the way, to the audience out there, I do plan to have like a truth versus fiction wrap up in the finale. So we'll get to that. I don't want to spoil it yet because I don't know how it's all going to shake out. Do stay tuned. I'll have that in a couple of weeks. And we're only 2 weeks away. So we'll know soon enough. Nobody's watching the show, by the way, but we do have some dedicated fans. People are actually messaging me on Spotify. So people are listening to us. Darren, it's true, even though the ratings are terrible.
Okay.
And maybe, after this episode, after last week's episode, which audiences seem to like a lot more. I think, honestly, I think this is something that might be a hit in the final hour if they successfully land it. But that remains to be seen. What do you think is going to happen in the immediate aftermath of this? Do you think Dave is going to retaliate? Do you think Dave's going to try to play it cool? What do you think Dave's next move is?
He's gone off the rails, hasn't he? So, I don't know. A big fire. Come on. Let's go, Dave.
Do you think that he'll be chilled by Freddy's suicide? That he sees like his own future there?
Interesting. Yeah. I think he's going to try to reenact his fantasy of having sex with someone in a burning building.
Maybe that's the lake house. He's like, oh, maybe that's a good spot for it. Yeah, I really don't know. And I actually like that. I like the fact that usually when you're this late in the show, I'm like, I know exactly how this is all going to tie up. I have no idea what's going to happen next. And I like that. I like being surprised. Sometimes badly surprised, but better than predicting every twist and turn.
Yeah, I got no idea. The fact that Calderon wasn't in this episode very much, maybe that's why I didn't rate it as highly as other episodes. So I want to see her come back with a vengeance and try to take some control of the situation.
Well, if her mom comes back next week, which I assume she's not going to come back in the final episode, I think that they're going to deal with it next week. She'll have a little more to do. She was pretty busy here, though. She was in a lot of scenes. She went with Dave to the questioning. She met with her brother. She talked to Rafe Spall in the first scene. She met with her sister-in-law. Yeah. She questioned the wives. So yeah, she's pretty busy in this episode.
I felt like I wanted her to do something in that interrogation scene. She kind of just was in the room. She didn't do anything. She was just there watching. So
she's listening to a lot of people talk. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. But that's, you know what? That's the problem with being the investigator in, in one of these procedural type dramas, is that that's what you got to do. You got to ask questions and listen to answers. So, but we'll see if she guns down Dave in the finale. At least she'll get her moment.
Please.
All right. I don't think we have time for that. Do you have? I don't think you have time now. Do you?
What are your top picks for this coming month?
Oh, there's a lot of things coming out. Alien Earth, of course, is coming in the middle of the month.
Yep.
Peacemaker is coming on the 21st.
Peacemaker, cool. Yeah, yeah.
Did you watch
I'm into that
Upload?
for
The final
sure.
season of Upload is coming on Prime. A lot of stuff on Prime this month, by the way.
Interesting. I really liked Upload. I really liked the first couple of seasons. I might have fallen out of it, or I'm not sure if we're up to date.
Yeah, I think there's a third season which was very much quieter than the first two seasons were really popular. Yeah, so this will be the finale. So the Terminal List. Did you watch the Terminal List? They have a prequel to the Terminal List with Taylor Kitsch as the star, also on Amazon Prime. A lot of Amazon Prime coming out
Yeah.
on the 27th. Oh, and I wanted to call this one out to you on Netflix, coming from Christopher Columbus, the director of Home Alone and Harry Potter
Yeah.
1 and 2, and the writer of the original Gremlins. I just watched Gremlins 2 last night for the first time, by the way. Writer of the
Oh,
original
wow.
Gremlins. There's a cozy murder mystery movie on Netflix called Thursday Murder Club, starring Helen Mirren and Pierce Brosnan.
You're joking.
I'm not joking. Maybe they were shooting this at the same time they were doing Mobland.
Oh my goodness. Well,
Ben
that's going to be
Kingsley,
interesting.
David Tennant, and Richard E. Grant are all in the cast as well. So quite an impressive cast on that one.
Well, I would say great cast apart from those first two based on their work in Mobland, but yeah, very interesting seeing them work together again.
And Final Destination Bloodlines just premiered on HBO Max this weekend. So everybody watch that. Oh, of course, I buried the lead. This is something you're definitely going to be interested in. Platonic season 2 is coming next week, next
I
Wednesday.
saw
Platonic
that.
season 2.
Yes, all over it. I loved the first season. I think that's going to be great.
And the same day, Wednesday, did your kids watch the Wednesday series? Wednesday Addams?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they loved it, but I think it just went a bit on and on and on and on. It seemed like it was going
I think
too
I
many
quit
episodes.
it on the third episode. I mean, it looked nice, but I just was not interested in what was going on there. It was definitely more for kids, I think. But anyway, of course, the biggest hit in the history of Netflix, part 1 of season 2 is coming this Wednesday. And one last thing coming this upcoming Wednesday, the same night as Platonic, is a new movie called The Pickup. And this is a comedy action truck heist movie where Eddie Murphy and Pete Davidson drive the truck and they get robbed by Kiki Palmer, Andrew Dice Clay, and some other people as well. So a comedy action film on Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime has so many films that they've picked up, acquired recently, and many, many premieres this month. So I think they're making a big push to be relevant.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I haven't seen much Amazon Prime in the last couple of months, but I did flick it on last night and I saw a poster for that film. So yeah, might have to start utilizing that subscription again.
The last thing I wanted to ask you about is there's a comedy from Australia called Fisk. Have you heard of this comedy?
Yeah. We love Fisk. Watched all of Fisk. Yeah, it's great.
Is it good? I was going to ask you because season 3 is coming along with the entire series is coming to Netflix on the 20th, including a new season, season 3, but also the previous seasons. According to the write-up, it's one of the, a huge hit in Australia. So I was curious, is it as funny as everybody says?
It's really good. It's just a small workplace comedy. But the lead lady, we've actually seen live. She's a great stand-up comedian, been on a million TV shows in Australia. And yeah, it's cool. Yeah, like I said, we're up to date with all the episodes when they came out. And yeah, it's very much worth watching, but it's not earth-shattering.
And of course, the big news for us, Darren, is that on August 12th, the same week that we wrap up the final episode of Smoke, we will be starting a week-to-week conversation about Alien Earth, which I think we get 2 episodes on the 12th. And I guess we'll try to record on the 13th. So let's keep everybody out there. Stay tuned for that.
Okay, I'm pumped for Alien
A show
Earth.
that we know people will actually be watching.
Yes. Well, I turn on Apple TV and it says Smoke is like the third, number 3 on
Yes.
Apple TV, but I don't believe it for a second.
That's actually terrible. Just to be clear. And the reason I mentioned that is because I saw that today too when I was rewatching this, that it was number 4 under Stick. And Stick was renewed for another season, by the way. But the Stick wrapped up like 2 weeks ago. So if it's like the new episode of Smoke is doing worse than an episode of a season of show that is finished, it's usually a bad sign. Oh, did you watch
It is.
speaking of releases this month, did you even try to watch the Jason Momoa series?
I haven't. No, not yet. I watched all of Stick though. I actually quite liked Stick.
I like Stick too. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Even though I knew exactly what was going to happen,
That's a
and it's
perfect
just
example.
a typical sports story. But
Mhm.
yeah, Owen Wilson got me by the end. I thought it was a really great show. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was good. I'm glad they're making a second season. I think that has good legs for another season. And yeah, I haven't watched the Jason Momoa series, but I've heard good things about it. And this one, that might be a show that people actually do watch. So
Okay, yeah.
maybe
Apple
we'll
TV
dip into it
really
here and there.
wants me to watch it.
Yes.
Every time I put something on, it's showing me trailers for it. So yeah, I
Well,
was
it
going
just
to
premiered,
wait
right?
until.
Yeah, this is the big push here to get that
Okay,
first. Yeah.
I was going to wait until reviews came out to see whether anyone's actually interested in it or it's actually good.
They're good. The reviews have been good so far. So I was thinking of sampling at least the first episode. I think there's two available. It's the usual thing. Two availables for Apple week one. So that's yet another August premiere. But lots of I mean, Eyes of Wakanda came out. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's coming out as well. So maybe we'll do that more like on a week to week basis as we go forward.
Huge. Yep. Okay. Yeah, it's been rainy and cold here, so I've been up to date on all the television shows.
There you go. It's been actually beautiful here. We have like a lot of sun. We had rain for a couple of days, but then we've had sun and not too hot. It's been incredibly hot recently, and the last couple of days have been actually pretty moderate. So we've been outside, but I still got to watch Gremlins 2 last night when my daughter went to see like a bunch of kids performing at like musical like a camp. And I'm like, okay, I'll skip that and watch Gremlins 2, apparently is what I did. Did you watch together, by the way? You didn't see it together, did you?
I haven't seen Together yet, but it's at the top of my list when I go to the cinema.
No, Weapons is top of your list next week, my friend.
Weapons is out. Okay. All right.
I mean, yeah, it's coming out.
Gonna have to
I
catch up.
think I think you guys get it in 2 days. We get it in like 4 days. But yeah, I will be watching Weapons probably at a preview screening, and that could be something else to discuss next week as well.
All right. Let's get on to it.
All right, Darren, thank you again for the conversation.
Cheers, Victor. Thanks so much.
All right, take care.